don't know much, said the wart, about animals in the earth. Then you had better meet my friend the badger. Have never met a badger. Good, said Merlin. Except for Archimedes, he is the most learned creature I know. You will like him. By the way, added the magician, stopping in the middle of his spell, there is one thing I ought to tell you. This is the last time I shall be able to turn you into anything. All the magic for that sort of thing has been used up, and this will be the end of your education. When Kay has been knighted, my labors will be over. You will have to go away then, to be his squire in the wild world. I shall go elsewhere. Do you think you have learned anything? I have learned, and been happy. That's right then, said Merlin. Try to remember what you've learned. He proceeded with the spell, pointed his wand of lignum vitae at the little bear, which had just begun to glow in the dimity as it hung by its tail from the North Star, and called out cheerfully, Have a good time for this last visit. Give love to the badger. The call sounded from far away, and Wart found himself standing by the side of an ancient tumulus, like an enormous molehill, with a black hole in front of him. Badgers live in there, he said to himself, and I'm supposed to go in and talk to him. But I won't. It was bad enough never to be a knight, but now my own dear tutor that I found on the only quest I shall ever have is to be taken from me also, and there'll be no more natural history. Very well. I'll have one more night of joy before I am condemned, as I am a wild beast now, and I will be a wild beast, and there it is. So he trundled off fiercely over the twilight snow, for it was winter. If you're feeling desperate, a badger is a good thing to be. A relation of the bears, otters, and weasel, you are the nearest thing to a bear now left in England, and your skin is so thick that it makes no difference who bites you. So far as your own bite is concerned, there is something about the formation of your jaw which makes it almost impossible to be dislocated. And so, however much the thing you are biting twists about, there is no reason why you should ever let go. Badgers are only one of the few creatures that can munch up hedgehogs unconcernedly, just as they can munch up everything else from wasp nests and roots and baby rabbits. It so happened that a sleeping hedgehog was the first thing which he came in Wart's way. Hedge pig, said the wart, peering at his victim with blurred, short-sighted eyes. I'm going to munch you up. The hedgehog, which had hidden its bright little eye buttons and long sensitive nose inside its curl, and which had ornamented its spikes with not very tasteful arrangements of dead leaves before going to bed for the winter in its grassy nest, woke up at this and squealed most lamentably. The more you squeal, said the wart, the more I shall gnash. It makes my blood boil within me. Ah, Mr. Brook, cried the hedgehog, holding himself tight shut. Good Mr. Brook, show mercy to a poor urchin and don't be tyrannical. It's on best and uncommon tiggy meter for the muched and mumbled. Have mercy, kind sir, on a harmless flea-bitten crofter which you can't tell his left hand nor his right. Hedge pig, said Wart remorsefully, forbear to whine, neither thrice nor once. Alas, me poor wife and children! I bet you haven't got any. Come out of that, thou tramp, prepare to meet thy doom. Mr. Brook, implored the unfortunate pig, come now, don't eat me orchid, sweet Mr. Brook, me duck. Hearken to an urchin's prayer. Grant the dear boon of a life of the most uncommon tiggy, Lord of Easter, and shall sing to thee in numbers of sweet, or teach ye how to suck cow's milk in the pearly dew. Sing? asked the wart, quite taken aback. Aye, sing, cried the hedgehog. And it began hurriedly to sing in a very placating way, but rather muffled, because it dared not uncurl. Oh, Genevieve, it sang most mournfully into its stomach. Sweet Genevieve. It also sang without pausing for a moment between the songs. Home, Sweet Home, and the old rustic bridge by the mill. Then, because it had finished its repertoire, it drew a hurried but quavering breath and began again on Genevieve. And after that, it sang Home, Sweet Home, the old rustic bridge by the mill. Come, said the wart, you can stop that, I won't bite you. Clementus Master, whispered the hedge pig humbly, I shall bless the saints abroad and governors for thee, and for thy most kindly chops, for so long as fleas skip nor urchins climb up the climbies. Then, for fear that its brief relapse into prose might have hardened the tyrant's heart, it launched out breathlessly into Genevieve for the third time. "Stop singing," said the wart. "For heaven's sake! Uncurl. I won't do you any harm. Come, you silly little urchin, and tell me where you learned these songs." "Uncurl is one word," answered the porpentine, trembling. It did not feel the least fretful at the moment. "But curling up is still another. If ye was to see me little naked nose, measter, at the auspicious moment, ye might feel a twitching in thy white toothsomes, and I'll feel a love and warning that we know. Let us sing ye again, sweet Mr. Brooke, concerning their rustic meal." "I don't want to hear it any more. You sing very well, but I don't want it again. Uncurl, you idiot, and tell me where you learned to sing." "Us bean't no common urchin," quavered the poor creature, staying curled up as tighter as ever. "Us work at Tyrk when idle by one of them there gentry, like as it might be from the mother's breast. Ah, don't ye nip our tender vitals, lovely Mr. Brooke, for ye were a proper gentleman. He were, and brought us up for comely on cow's milk and all that, so popped up for a lady's lord the dish. And there bean't many urchins were drunken water out of porcelain, that there bean't." "I don't know what you are talking about," said the wart. "You are a gentleman," cried the hedgehog desperately. "Like a tally. You took it when I were little, and fed on us when we had it no more. You were a proper gentleman, and what fed us in our parlour, like what the no urchins hadn't been aboard nor since. Fed up from a gentleman's person, aye, and at the early day it were, for whenever we left us for not for wilfulness, and that thou mightst be sure." "What was the name of this gentleman?" "He were a gentleman, you were. He had no proper name, not like you may remember it, but he were a gentleman, that he were, and fed us out of the porcelain." "Was he called Merlin?" asked the wart curiously. "Aye, that were a name, a proper fine name were it. He never lay a tongue on it by near means. Aye, Marion, he called himself, and fed us out of a porcelain like a proper fine gentleman." "Oh, do uncurl," exclaimed the wart. "I know the man who kept you, and I think I saw you yourself when you were a baby in cotton wool at his cottage. Come on, urchin. I am sorry I frightened you. We are friends here, and I want to see your little grey, wet, twitching nose, just for old time's sake." "Twitch a nose be one name," answered the hedgehog obstinately, "and a twitching of that nose be another, mister. Now you move along, kind Mr. Brooke, and leave the poor crofter to tweak its winter drowse. Let you think of beetles o' honey, a sweet barring, and flights and angels, and singing thee to their rest." "Nonsense!" exclaimed the wart. "I won't do you any harm, because I knew you when you were little." "Ah, them beggars," said the poor thing to its stomach. "They go a battering about with no harm in their hearts. Lord bless 'em, but don't they fair to give you a nip without a noticing of it, or Lord bless ye, what a retired un to do. That is, their skin o' theirs, that's what it be, which from the earliest children they've been a nipping among each other, and also their mas without a feeling of anything among theirselves. So natural they nips elsewhere like the same. Now, my poor gentleman, Meester Mairn, there was allers a rushing alter his ankles, with their yick 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 when they wanted to be fed like those what he kept 'em from ladles and holy church, and how he'd would scream. Aye, 'tis a muckly thing to deal with thy badgers, that they us may be sure." "Don't see nothing," added the hedgehog, before a wart could protest. "Blunder along like one of them ambling hearthrugs outside of the great gate. Get their way out for the moment, just out fortune-like, without any wicked intention of it snip-snap, just like that, of you self-defense of the hungry blind, and then where are you?" "Only peace can do on for 'em," continued with the urchin. "It is up on their nose. Achilles' heel they name on their scriptures. Hit one of their great trot-ups on their nose, bim-bam like that here, and sharp at life, or fair out of him, earache and snuffled. 'Tis a fair knockout, that's what 'tis." "But how can a poor urchin dump up on her nose, when he ain't got nothing to dump on which nor which way to hold on, and then comes out of E and asks for E to uncurl?" "You need not to uncurl," said the wart resignedly. "I'm sorry I woke you up, chap, and I'm sorry I frightened you. I think you are a charming hedgehog, and meeting you has made me feel more cheerful again. You just go off to sleep like you were when I met you, and I shall go look for my friend Badger, as I was told to do. Good night, urchin, and good luck in the snow." "Good night it may be," muttered the pig grumpily. "And then again it might. First it's uncurled, and then it's curling one thing a moment and another and next to here. Hey ho, 'tis a turvy world. But good night. Ladies, it's my mother. Come hail, come snow, and so shall be continued in our next. With these words, the humble animal curled himself up still more snugly than before, gave several squeaky grunts, and was far away in the dream world, so much deeper than other human dreams, as a whole winter's sleep is longer than the quiet of a single night. Well, thought the wart, he certainly gets over his troubles pretty quickly. Fancy going to sleep again as quick as that. I dare say he was never more than half awake all the time, and I will think that it was only a dream when he gets up properly in the spring. He watched the dirty little ball of leaves and grass and fleas for a moment, curled up tightly inside its hole, and then grunted and moved off towards the badger's set, following his own oblong footmarks back towards the snow. So Merlin sent you to me, said the badger, to finish your education. Well, I can only teach you two things, to dig and love your home. These are the true end of philosophy. Would you show me your home? Certainly, said the badger, though of course I don't use it all. It is a rambling old place, much too big for a single man. I suppose some parts of it may be 1,000 years old. There are about 4 families of us in it, here and there taken up by large from cellars to attics, and sometimes we don't meet for months. A crazy old place. I suppose it must seem to you modern people, but there is cozy. He went ambling down the corridors to the enchanted set, rolling from leg to leg with queer badger paddle, his white mask with his black stripes looking ghostly in the gloom. It's along that passage, he said, if you wish to use your hands. Badgers are not like foxes. They have a special midden where they put out their used bones and rubbish proper earth closets and bedrooms whose bedding they turn out frequently to keep it clean. The wart was charmed with what he saw. He admired the great hall most, for this was the central room of the tumulus. It was difficult to know whether to think of it as a college or as a castle, and the various suites and bolt holes radiated outward from it. It was a bit cobwebby, owing to being a sort of common room instead of being looked after by one particular family, but it was decidedly solemn. Badger called it combination room. All around the paneled walls there was ancient paintings of departed badgers, famous in their day scholarships of godliness, lit from above by shaded glowworms. There were stately chairs with badger arms stamped on gold on their Spanish leather seats. The leather was coming off. A portrait of the founder over the fireplace. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle around the fire, and there were mahogany fans which everybody could shield their faces from the flames, a kind of tilting board by means of which the decanters could be slid back from the bottom of the semicircle to the top. Some black gowns hung in the passage outside, and all was extremely ancient. I am a bachelor at the moment, said the badger, apologetically, when he got back to his own snug room with the flowered wallpaper. So I'm afraid that there's only one chair. You'll have to sit on the bed. Make yourself at home, my dear, while I brew some punch, and tell me how things are going in the wide world. Oh, they go much the same. Merlin as well, and Kay is going to be a knight next week. An interesting ceremony. What enormous arms you have, remarked the wart, watching him stir the spirits with a spoon. So I have, for that matter. And he looked down at his own bandy-legged muscles. He was mainly a tight chest, holding together a pair of forearms, mighty as thighs. It is to dig with, said the learned creature complacently. Mole and I suppose you would have to dig pretty quick to match up with us. I met a hedgehog outside. Did you now? They say nowadays that hedgehogs can carry swine fever and foot and mouth disease. I thought he was rather nice. They do have sort of a pathetic appeal, said the badger sadly. But I'm afraid I generally just munch them up. There's something irresistible about pork crackling. The Egyptians, he added, and by this he meant the gypsies, are fond of eating them too. Mine would not uncurl. Oh, you should have pushed him into some water, and then he would have shown you his poor legs quick enough. Come, the punch is ready. Sit down by the fire and take your ease. It's nice to sit here with the snow and wind outside. It is nice. Let us drink good luck to Kay in his knighthood. Good luck to Kay, then. Good luck. Well, said the badger, setting down his glass again with a sigh. Now what could have possessed Merlin to send you to me? He was talking about learning, said the wart. Ah, well, If it is learning that you are after, you have come to the right shop. But don't you find it rather dull? Sometimes I do, said the wart, and sometimes I don't. On the whole, I can bear a good deal of learning if it is about natural history. I'm writing a treatise just now, said the badger, coughing diffidently to show that he was absolutely set on explaining it, which is to point out why man has become the master of the animals. Perhaps you would like to hear it. It is for my doctor's degree, you know, he added hastily, before the wart could protest. He got few chances of reading his treatise to anybody, so he could not bear to let the opportunity slip by. Thank you very much, said the wart. It will be good for you, dear boy. It is just the thing to top off an education. Study birds and fish and animals, and then finish off with man. How fortunate that you came. Now, where the devil did I put that manuscript? The old gentleman scratched about with his great claws until he had turned up a dirty bundle of papers, one corner of which he had been used for lighting something. Then he sat down on his leather armchair, which had a deep depression in the middle of it. He put on his velvet smoking cap with the tassel, and produced a pair of tarantula spectacles, which he balanced on the end of his nose. "Ahem," said the badger. He immediately became paralyzed with shyness, and sat blushing at his papers, unable to begin. Well, go on, said the wart. It's not very good, he explained coyly. It was just in a rough draft, you know. I shall alter a lot before I send it in. Oh, I'm sure that it must be interesting. Oh, no, it's not a bit interesting. It's just an odd thing I threw off in an odd half hour, just to pass the time. But still, this is how it begins. Said the badger. Then he put on an impossibly high falsetto voice and began to read as fast as possible. People often ask in an idle question whether the procession of evolution began with the chicken or the egg. Was there an egg out of which the first chicken came, or did the chicken lay the egg first? I am in a position to say that the first thing created was the egg. When God had manufactured all the eggs out of which the fishes and the serpents and the birds and the mammals and even the duck-billed platypus would eventually emerge, he called the embryos before him, and he saw that they were good. Perhaps I ought to explain, added the badger, lowering his papers nervously, and then looking over at the wart at the top of them, that all embryos look very much the same. They are what you are before you are born, and whether you are going to be a tadpole, or a peacock, or a camel leopard, or a man, when you are an embryo, you look like a peculiarly repulsive and helpless human being. I continue as follows. The embryos stood in front of God with their feeble hands clasped politely over their stomachs and their heavy heads hanging down respectfully, and God addressed them. He said, Now you embryos, here you are, all looking exactly the same, and we are going to give you the choice of what you want to be. When you grow up, you will get bigger anyway, but we are pleased to grant you another gift as well. You may alter any parts of yourselves to anything which you think to be useful in your later life. For instance, at the moment, you cannot dig. Anybody who would like to turn his hands into a pair of spades or garden forks is allowed to do so. Or to put it another way, at present, you can only use your mouths for eating. Anybody who would like to use his mouth as an offensive weapon can change it by asking, and can be a cock-and-drill or a saber-toothed tiger. Now then, set up and choose your tools, but remember that when you choose, you will grow into and will have to stick to. All the embryos thought the matter over politely, and then one by one they stepped up before the eternal throne. They were allowed 2 or 3 specializations, so that some chose to use their arms as flying machines, and their mouths as weapons, or crackers, or drillers, or spoons, while others selected to use their bodies as boats, and their hands as oars. We badgers thought very hard and decided to ask 3 boons. We wanted to change our skin to shields, our mouths for weapons, and our arms for garden forks. These boons were granted. Everybody specialized in one way or another, and some of us in very queer ways. For instance, one of the desert lizards decided to swap his whole body for blotting paper, and one of the toads who lived in the droughty antipodes decided simply to be a water bottle. The asking and granting took up 2 long days, as they were 5th and 6th, so far as I remember, and at the very end of the 6th day, just before it was time to knock off for Sunday, they had to go through all the little embryos except for one. This embryo was man. Well, our little man, said God, You will have waited till the last and slept on your decision, and we are sure that you've been thinking hard all the time. What can we do for you?" "Please God," said the embryo, "I think that you made me in the shape which now I have for reasons best known to yourself, and that I would be rude to change. If I am to have to change my choice, I will stay as I am. I will not alter any of the parts which you gave me for other or doubtless inferior tools, and I will stay a defenseless embryo all my life, doing my best to make myself a few feeble implements out of the wood, iron, and other materials which you have sent fit to put before me. If I want a boat, I will try to construct it out of trees, and if I want to fly, I will put together a chariot to do it for me. Probably I have been very silly in refusing to take advantage of your kind offer, but I have done my very best to think it over carefully, and now I hope that the feeble decision of this small innocent will find your favor with yourselves." "Well done!" exclaimed the Creator in delighted tones. "Here, all you embryos, come here with your beaks and whatnots to look upon our first man. He is the only one who has guessed our riddle out of all of you, and we have great pleasure in conferring upon him the order of dominion over the fowls of the air, and the beasts of the earth, and the fishes of the sea. Now let the rest of you get along and love and multiply, for it is time to knock off for the weekend. As for you, man, you will be a naked tool all your life, through a user of tools. You will look like an embryo till they bury you, but all the others will be embryos before your might. Eternally undeveloped, you will always remain potential in our image, able to see some of our sorrows and to feel some of our joys. We are partly sorry for you, man, but partly hopeful. Run along then, and do your best. And listen, man, before you go." "Well?" asked Adam, turning back from his dismissal. "We are only going to say," said God shyly, twisting their hands together. "Well, we were just going to say, God bless you." "It's a good story," said the wart doubtfully. "I like it better than Merlin's one about the rabbi, and it is interesting too." The badger was covered with confusion. No, dear boy, you exaggerate. A minor parable at most. Besides, I fear it a trifle optimistic." "How?" "Well, it is true that man has the order of dominion and is the mightiest of animals, if you mean the most terrible one. But I have sometimes doubted lately whether or not it is the most blessed." "I don't think Sir Ector is very terrible." "All the same, even if Sir Ector was to go for a walk beside a river, not only would the birds fly from him and the beasts run away from him, but the very fish would dart to the other side. They don't do this for each other." "Well, man is the king of the animals." "Perhaps, or if one say the tyrant, and then again, we do have to admit that he has quantity of vices." "King Pellinore has not got many." "He would go to war if King Uther declared one. Do you know that Homo sapiens is almost the only animal which wages war?" "Ants do." "Don't say ants do in that sweeping way, dear boy. There are more than 4,000 different sorts of them, and from all those kinds I can only think of 5 which are belligerent. There are the 5 ants, 1 termite that I know of, and man." "But the packs of wolves from the forest sauvage attack our flocks of sheep every winter." "Wolves and sheep belong to different species, my friend. True warfare is what happens between bands of the same species. Out of the hundreds of thousands of species, I can only think of 7 which are belligerent. Even man has a few varieties like the Esquimaux and the Gypsies and the Lapps and the certain nomads in Arabia, who do not do it because they do not claim boundaries. True warfare is rather in nature than cannibalism. Do you think that it is a little unfortunate?" "Personally," said the wart, "I should have liked to go to war. If I could have been made a knight, I should have liked the banners and the trumpets, the flashing armor and the glorious charges. And oh, I should have liked to do great deeds, and be brave, and conquer my own fears. Don't you have courage in warfare, Badger, and endurance, and comrades who you love?" The learned animal thought for a long time, gazing into the fire. In the end, he seemed to change the subject. "Which did you like best?" he asked. "The ants or the wild geese?"